Hey, welcome back to Black Lab Garage. Did you think I was just going to leave you hanging at the power steering pump rebuild? No, I did notice a drip coming from the steering box on this truck, on the sector shaft, as they call it, you know, where the Pitman arm is. So I'm going to go ahead and put new seals in the steering box, and I want to show you how to do it. You ready? Come on, let's get into it. Man, this sun's bright and hot. Now, you'll notice there's a power steering pump on here. This is not the pump that I rebuilt. This is just an extra one that I had around that I threw on here right fast because, well, I needed the truck one day. I needed it to haul this car home. So that's why I had to throw a power steering pump on this thing really fast. That's an old car of mine that I've owned for years, but thanks to my crackhead neighbors where I used to live, they stole the axles and stuff out of it, and I ended up having to just junk the car. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm going to leave the pump on here because I'm going to cheat and use the pressure from this pump to blow the bottom seals out before I remove the steering box. That just makes it easier. Alright, hopefully you can hear me because I got a fan running because it's hot out here. So I'm going to impact in a socket and remove this Pitman arm nut, and then we'll have to get a Pitman arm puller and pull the Pitman arm off. There's a snap ring in behind there that you have to pull out in order to get the seals to blow out. So I'm going to go get my Pitman arm puller and socket that fits that. Alright, so the socket size is 1 inch and 5/16, or it is on mine anyway. So let's see if this electric impact will bring it off. Hey, it did. I'm surprised. Well, we've got a new problem. The Pitman arm puller won't fit between the Pitman arm and the steering box. Okay, now remember, I couldn't get the Pitman arm puller in between the steering box and the Pitman arm itself. So what I did, I come up here and loosened this jam nut right there on top of the steering box, and I turn that screw in, which pushes the output shaft down. See there? You got me enough room to slide it right on there. Now let's see if it'll come off. There she goes. So just fix my cap. So just remember that if you can't get the puller in between the steering box and the Pitman arm, loosen that lock nut on top and turn that adjusting screw in, and it will make the shaft come down. Of course, once we go to put the seals in, everything will have to unscrew it, you know, put it back where it needs to be, but that'll help you get the Pitman arm off. Now you see that snap ring right there? We got to pull that snap ring out. Got it out. Now then, put the Pitman arm back on and tighten the nut back up. Not real tight, but just tight enough to hook the steering back up. Now get you in a bucket or a pan or something, put underneath where the Pitman arm is right there. Then come up here and make sure that you have fluid in the power steering pump. And don't do like me and miss it. Now what we're going to do is get in the truck and crank it and work the wheel back and forth a few times, and the pressure from the pump, since we took that snap ring out above the Pitman arm, that pressure should blow those seals out, because that one seal in the bottom is way up in there and it's hard to get out. So let's let the hydraulic pressure do the job for us. You know, work smarter, not harder. This thing's probably going to be hard to crank because it ain't been cranked in weeks. And there ain't no choke. I guess better take it out of gear, huh? I'm not even touching the gas now. It's in there idling on its own. Yeah, gotta have fuel injection. Well, it didn't blow them completely out. It blew this ring out and blew the seals down closer to the end. So it'll still make it easier to get out. So now let's start unhooking the lines and unbolting the box. Now then, you can see here I've tied the steering wheel up so it won't, wander too far when we take the steering box loose, and when we try to put it back it won't wander around, and then you end up with your steering wheel upside down when you're trying to drive. Now we'll remove these 2 bolts from the bracket that holds the brake hose. The upper one is a 9/16 and the lower one is a 1/2. If I'm not mistaken, there's a nut on the back side of the lower one. Yes, there was a nut on the back side. It's a 1/2 inch also. So pull that lower bolt out. Well, try to anyway. There we go. Now you can see the 3rd bolt for the steering box. It's covered up by this bracket, that's why you have to take that bracket loose. Now I've tied a rope around the steering box. That way, when I take the bolts out, it's not going to just fall straight to the ground, which with the cross member and exhaust and stuff, it probably won't, but we're just erring on the side of caution. Because if it hits the ground, there's a good chance you could bust your steering box. So I tied a rope around it and tied it off. I'm going to take the bolts out, and then we'll take a rope loose and lower it down. And the socket for these is a 5/8. Uh-oh. Now let's try it again with no extension. That'd be a big negative. Alright, I'm going to try heating where the bolt mounts through. See if that helps us out any. Hopefully don't catch the steering box on fire. I got them out. Air. Don't get me wrong, electric impacts are great, but it's still hard to beat the power of an air impact. Alright, I had to climb over in here with the motor, but now I'm taking the, if you can see, I'm taking the steering lines loose here. You know, I must say, the 4-wheel drives are a whole lot easier to get to the steering box than the 2-wheel drives. So let me get these lines loose. I'll be back with you here in a minute. Now to remove that bolt that holds the steering column onto the steering box where it's splined, you need a 7/16 12-point socket. Now, since we got the bolts out of the steering box, we've got the bolt out of the steering coupling, we can ease this apart here, and then we can slip the steering box on down. There it is. Now let's lower it down. Alright, steering box is out. I will go ahead and tell you something I didn't plan on was this truck being a 4-speed, which I mean I knew the truck was a 4-speed, but I didn't plan on that Z-bar and braking stuff being in the way of dropping the steering box down through the bottom. If you have an automatic, you can drop them right out through the bottom. If you have a 4-speed, pull it out through the top. I found out it's easier to just pull it out through the top than it is to try to take all that loose. So just save some time. If you got a 4-speed, pull it out through the top. You know, slide it back and pull it out. Alright, got the steering box up on the table here. I'm going to take a 3/4 inch socket and remove these two. Well, this one's more like a stud and a bolt. Now, if I've got it centered, should be able to pull this on out. Might get a little bit of help. I'm going to use the rubber end of it. Yep. Good thing I thought I had to put a pan underneath there to catch that. I know. Yeah, they finally popped out. See, that's what I was talking about. Let me turn it here so you can see. Yeah, they finally popped out. Right here is what I was talking about. You can see these teeth right here. It's got to come through that hole right there. That's what I was saying. If you've got it centered, it'll pull on out. If you don't, it'll hit one side or the other. That's why you have to turn that a little bit and then turn the input shaft so it lines up so you can pull it out. Dang. There it goes. You better believe I'm going to polish this thing before I put it back in. See, look at that corrosion stuff. So yeah, they'll definitely need to be polished. Now hopefully you can see right here. So you got to remember we already had one washer come out when it was still in the truck. So we got that one. Now there's a seal here. And then looks like another washer. And then another seal behind that. So we got to reach down through there and knock them out from the other side. That'd be kind of hard for you to see that once I lay it down to knock them out. But I want you to see what I was talking about. Alright, I stood it up, make it a little easier on me. And there's one seal. So let's see. Washer, seal. I want you to look at the corrosion stuff that's on it. And then here's the next washer. And then one more seal. There's the other seal. I had to knock it in a little bit and then pry it out. Now I'm going to clean all this up in here because you can see where it's corroded. Alright. There are some variations in these things down through the years, as far as some will have 2 thick seals, some will have 1 thick, 1 thin seal. So just pay attention to your box and pay attention to the instructions that come with the seal kits. So I'm going to take a socket, drive this first one in there. It says something about not putting it all the way up against that bushing, so we're back from it a little ways. Alright, so we got one seal in, and then Drop one washer in. Now take another seal. Make sure you drive them in straight. And this one has a washer. So now we're ready to put the sector shaft back in. And we'll put some grease on the seals and inside the sector shaft bushing in here. That'll make it go in, or it'll make the sector shaft go in a little easier and won't tear any seals that way. Put a little bit in the bushing up here also. Well, which now, yours may or may not have bushings in them. They made them with bushings, they made them without bushings. And if yours gets a lot of slop in it, and it doesn't have bushings, you can take it to a machine shop and have it machined, and they can put a bushing in it for you. Or if yours has a bushing and it gets a lot of slop in it, well, they can pull that bushing out and put you a new bushing in it. And line this back up with that hole that we pulled it out of. Oh yeah, wait a minute. I'm about to forget that O-ring, wasn't I? Alright. I'll put the O-ring in here. Now I was going to show you just a handy little tip to make sure that your teeth are down, because while you're messing around with it, this thing can turn and then you won't get the sector shaft in. Just make sure that the teeth are down and that you've got it centered. Then after you do that, and your O-ring's in it, then you can slide the sector shaft back in. See, this went right together after I polished the shaft and stuff. Let's see, this screw was down here. And don't forget to put your snap ring in. Peg it, make sure it snaps. There it went. And don't forget to tighten these two screws down. Let's see now. I'm just setting this where it takes those. I don't know if you can hear this or not if I back it out. You can hear the slack in the gears. So I'm just tightening it down enough to take the slack out. About right there. I think the book says turn it all the way to the left, and then you'd have to have a torque wrench with an arm on it, not a quick top, and see how much force it takes to turn it, and then turn it to center, and you should adjust this to, I think it reads like 10 pounds more force to turn it in center than it does from the side. I think that's what the book says. I'd have to go back and look. Now I do want to add here, when you see me, adjusting the preload on that sector, just remember that it's not going to get hard to turn in the middle. It'll feel good, when you've got it centered. It's when you turn it all the way to the left or to the right that if you have too much preload on it, that it'll try to stick. Because like literally you can let go of the wheel and it'll stay stuck there. That's where you get into trouble. So just because it feels good in the center, turn it all the way to the left and turn it all the way to the right and check it, see if it's binding there and see how it feels. And then of course if it's too tight, back it off. Alright, now let's try to get this snap ring out of here. Come on, baby. Have I ever mentioned I hate snap rings? I think I have at least 2 or 3 times in this video. And that's why I hate them, because every time you got them squeezed together, and by the time you go to pull them out, they come out, or come loose from your pliers. There. Now I took my slide hammer, poked a hole in that seal and screwed the slide hammer into it. There we go. That easy. A whole lot easier than the snap rings. Alright, I put some grease on the inside of this seal. I've done wiped everything, cleaned everything up here. And now the dust seal, which goes, this one don't have it, well, it'll flare up once I put it on there, yeah. Starts, it didn't have a lip pointing that way, but it does once you slide it on there. There we go. So now let's center this thing. There's one, there's a mark right here. This box has, this one has 4 turns from lock to lock. Let's turn it all the way to one side. Okay. Let's see. So it's right here. So it's right there. So there's 1 turn. And there's 2 turns. So it should be centered right there. Now we're ready to put it back on. Okay, I'm over in this thing actually. I have no idea how I want to get back out of it. Because I used to do this all the time. Now it just occurred to me that I always took the radiator out before I did this. And I didn't this time. That's why it's such a tight fit. But anyway, I'm going to try to lower the steering box down in there. And the first thing I have to do is put the input shaft into the end of the steering column, into that clamp. You have to do that before you try to put any bolts in to hold the steering box. I really wish this fuel line wouldn't right in my belly button. Yeah, that just made it worse. I ain't even joking. I really don't know how I'm going to get back out of here. Now, this is much better. I finally got back up out of here, and I took the radiator out of it. See, now I got room to move around. Now, let's put this steering box up in there if we can. This is one of those things that it really, really helps if you have a friend to help you. Ow, that was my fingers I just mashed. Alright, got the 3 steering box bolts tightened up. Now I'm putting the brake hose bracket back on the frame. So once I do that, we'll put the Pitman arm back on, and well, we're basically done underneath here. Alright, let's put this Pitman arm up on here. One thing about Pitman arms is, well, they can't go on but one way, so looks like we've got it dead on it. Because there's master splines in it, so it won't let you put it on but one way. Wrong socket. Let me get the right socket. Okay, now I got the right socket. And that's torqued just about right. So we're through under here. Alright, we're getting in the home stretch now. Hooking up the return line here. Well, trying to. There we go. And you remember that pressure line that wouldn't come out of the power steering pump unless they used vice grips on it? I went ahead and got a new line. So let me get it installed. Alright, I'm just hooking the brackets and everything back up. And when I took my fan off yesterday, I noticed something. What do you see there? And on this one. And on this one. Yeah, this fan was coming apart. I'd always heard of that happening to these fans, but I've never had that happen on one until now. So I'll have to buy another fan for it for sure. Alright, got your front accessories on. Got the pump that we rebuilt on. So let me drop the radiator back in and we'll be ready to fire this thing up. Alright, all the accessories back on, radiator in. The motor is wet because I spilled antifreeze, so I washed everything down. That way no stray animals or anything will get into the antifreeze and kill them. You know, I do care just a little bit. So put top F in the power steering pump, so let's crank her over and see what happens. Well, this thing really needs that fuel injection. I never got it started. Well, no leaks, no noises up here. And no leaks and noises down there. You know, there's still water dripping off of it, but I don't see no stream of fluid out from the Pitman arm or anything. Well, now that it's set overnight, let's see. See the steering wheel straight. And front wheel straight. There's our rebuilt pump running. No leaks up top from the steering box. And no drips from down here. That's why I let this wheel off so I can get in here and show you. And the best part, and you notice the pump is not that noisy, not like a lot of them are. So we've done good. See there, that wasn't so terribly bad. It's something that anybody can do themselves and save you a lot of money, because them steering boxes, you know, the rebuilt ones, they ain't cheap at all, and most of the time you just need reseal, and every once in a while you'll run into one that's just has the housing that's wore out, but most of the time they just need to be resealed. So I'm just showing you all this stuff, trying to help you save some money so you can have more money put towards the project. So I hope this helps some of you. Hey, and stop right now. Stop, hold up, put your cheese sandwich down. Hit the thumbs up. Comment. Subscribe. It's free. But in all seriousness, I hope this helps some of you. So, as I always say, stay tuned. Me and the pups will be back with another one. And listen to more Goose Creek. See you.